A very good morning, afternoon, and evening to all the ladies and gentlemen present over here, and a very warm welcome to all of you. I'm your virtual host, Diksha Rana, and it's my pleasure and privilege to welcome each and every one of you to this eventful morning at LMHI Global Colloquium 2021. To start with the next session of the day, I would like to invite our chairs, Dr. Anil Khurana, Dr. Janardhanan Nair, and Dr. Pinakin N. Trivedi. As the moderators for this session, I would like to invite Dr. Meeta Gupta, and the theme for this session is Improving Education, Practice, and Research. Over to you, Dr. Meeta.
Thank you, Diksha. Good morning, afternoon, evening, respected chairs, speakers, and delegates from all over the world. As we know, homeopathy is undergoing a transition due to challenging health scenario, technological advancements, and increasing focus on quality standards. It is high time that we have an open dialogue and introspection, identifying roadblocks, overcome challenges, and utilize every possible opportunity to develop a sustainable framework for education, clinical practice, and evidence-based research. This session is specifically dedicated to reforms in these areas. We have three chairs for this session from National Commission for Homeopathy India. We have Dr. Anil Khurana, who is Chairman of National Commission. We have Dr. K.R. Janardhanan Nair, who is President, Medical Assessment and Rating Board for Homeopathy, and Dr. Pinakin Trivedi, who is President, Board of Ethics and Registration for Homeopathy. We welcome you all, sir. We have speakers for this session, Dr. Tarkeshwar Jain, Dr. Robert Van Haslin, and Dr. Michael Stewart. First session will be from Dr. Tarkeshwar Jain. He will be speaking on reforms in homeopathic education, the NCH perspective. We welcome you, sir, and over to you.
Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to all. Respected chair for this particular session, all my fellow colleagues, teachers, students, and homeopaths from all over the world. And it is my pleasure to be here on this platform. And LMHI is doing a wonderful job by organizing this colloquium, which is having interactions from all over the world, and more than 4,000 participants are continuously participating in this marathon event. So such a wonderful job LMHI is done, and for that I really congratulate the entire team of Gustavo and his team for organizing this wonderful event. Today's session is dedicated for the reforms in homeopathic education, and as we know, the scenario is changing all over the world, as Dr. Mita correctly said. There is a process of transition going on all over the world regarding the framing of homeopathic education policy, regarding deciding what would be the future of homeopathy in the coming time. And here I would like to inform all the participants who are joining to this particular session that in India, we are also going through the major changes which has been witnessed, witnessed in the form of establishment of a Commission for Homeopathy. Earlier, homeopathic education in India was governed by the Central Council of Homeopathy. Later on, it was being superseded by the Board of Governors. But on 5th July 2021, although the act was passed for the commission in 2020 only, but it came in force on 5th July 2021. And since then, entire education control of homeopathy is deliberated in the National Commission for Homeopathy. And on this particular, with this particular presentation, I just want to give a brief info what commission is taking up, what are the mandate of commission, what is the vision of commission, and how we are willing to move forward in bringing changes in homeopathic education, which is really needed in current time, as we all are going through a big transition in the system. So I would just like to give a brief info about an introduction about the commission itself, which has been constituted by an act of parliament known as the National Commission for Homeopathy Act 2020, which came into force on 5th July 2021 by Gazette notification dated 5th July 2021. And what are the vision and mission? Why this commission has been established? Although for last 1973, for last 40 some years, more than 40 years, commission education control was mainly with the Central Council of Homeopathy. But why commission was needed, and what is the vision and mission, and what is the objective of Government of India to establish this commission? The basic the objective, the mission that commission carries is we have certain mandate, we have certain mandates also, and we have certain targets which we have to achieve in the coming time. But the most important part for which the commission is being established is that there should be a good quality education for homeopaths all over the India. And to present this lecture in on the platform of Liga is to give an idea what is happening in India regarding homeopathic education. We know various education structure all over the world. There are many colleges in around in America and Europe which are having the part-time classes, or some short structure courses are there. Some hours are dedicated for the education of homeopathy. But I would like to inform to my friends that in India, since very beginning, homeopathy is taught in a very structured manner. It is a regular full-time course where a student has to go for 4.5 years regular to the college, and he has to go for 1 year of internship also. And after that, he want to have some more specialization, some more command over the system, then they can go for MD, which is again a 3 year duration regular full-time course. So here in India, structure of education is quite reformed, and well-structured education is given to all the persons who are seeking or who are looking for the homeopathic education. So the basic aim of commission is to access to quality and affordable medical education in homeopathy, availability of adequate and high quality homeopathy medical professional in all parts of the country, promote equitable and universal health care that encourages community health perspective and makes services of homeopathy medical professional accessible and affordable to all the citizens of India. We have a responsibility to promote national health goals, and we have to work in line of not only with the system of homeopathy but with the policies of the government. What are the changes the government is expecting in the coming time? What are the reforms the government is planning in the coming time? That we have to carry together, and we have to work in direction of promoting national health goals. Encourage homeopathic medical professionals to adopt latest medical research in their work and to contribute to research. This is the one part where we are lacking most of the time, and because of that, many times our students, our fellow teachers are not able to publish good quality papers in the reputed journals. So that is also one of the part, that if we are able to maintain the education level and we are giving a study curriculum designed in such a way where the student can find out, or where there is an overall development of a student in terms of a physician, a clinician, and not only a physician and clinician but a good researcher also. So if we are able to produce good researcher, then that will attribute to good publication of research paper, which eventually may help in establishing the sanctity of homeopathy, the credibility of homeopathy. Has objectively access to medical institution periodically in a transparent manner. This is the one important task which has been given to the commission, that whatever the institute that we are having in India, in coming slide, I will let you know that how many institutes are currently working in our country. But whatever institutes are working, whether they are UG or PG, commission would conduct periodical inspection, periodical assessment of working of those institute, and accordingly we will frame a rating network. Accordingly, each institute would be provided a grading, a rating, so that any person who is seeking admission in BHMS or an MD course, the student, the parent would be able to know that which institute is having a good ranking and where my student would be better benefited, where the my interest, my personal interest, my student's interest will be safeguarded, and he will become a good homeopath. So this rating criteria would be managed by the commission on the basis of periodical inspections conducted by the MARB, Medical Assessment and Rating Board, which is responsible for the conduct of inspection of various colleges. Maintain a homeopathy medical register for India, although registration work for homeopaths around India is maintained by the CCS itself, and this is further enhanced. Now the commission would maintain national medical register and national homeopathic register, where anybody can find their details, their credentials, which state they belongs to where they have been studied, and what are their credentials. So a common national medical register for all the homeopaths across the India would be maintained and served by the commission itself. Enforce high ethical standard in all aspect of medical services. This is one very sensitive aspect, and many times we receive many complaints about the unethical practice. So commission would keep a watch on the ongoing practices in the field, the way our fellow doctors are practicing, whether they are crossing any line, or whether they are indulged in malpractices. All these parameters would be assessed by the commission itself. Have an effective grievance redressal mechanism. National Commission for Homeopathy, though established by the Government of India under the Ministry of Ayush, is not always an autocratic body. It is not a kind of dictator. Rather, it is a body which will work in consonance with the experts of field, with the experiences of various agencies, and we have established a very effective grievance redressal mechanism where whatever decision the commission is taking up, the board is taking up, a user, a college, a practitioner have a right to appeal, and through these grievance redressal mechanism, we can sort out their various complaints. So it will be working in a purely democratic manner where any college, any faculty member, any practitioner of homeopathy can come to commission and then they can file their complaints, and commission would be delighted to look in that. So the major function of commission is to frame policies. This is what we are doing right now. And although the Act of 1973 established by CCH is quite elaborated, and most of the functions regarding the establishment of colleges, regarding the functioning of colleges, regarding the syllabus and curriculum, everything is well narrated in those act also, but the commission is taking a step forward, and we are in process of elaborating all these curriculum, all these guidelines, minimum standards of education, minimum standard of requirement for the colleges. They are all under the process of a complete revamp. For the last so many years, we are seeing that more or less same kind of syllabus curriculum is going on in all the colleges with some minor changes over a period of time. But we haven't witnessed any major change in the syllabus and the curriculum. But in consonance of the ideas of the government and with the changing environment and scenario, it is now high time to relook into the syllabus, to the curriculum, and to frame syllabus in curriculum in such a way that when a homeopath is passing from a homeopathic medical college, he should be competent enough to treat and to manage everything, every kind of disease that is coming his way. And not only he become a skilled homeopath, but he become a skilled practitioner, also a good citizen with good ethical qualities, with a good attitude, with a good behavioral approach. So all these qualities should be imbibed in him with his duration of 4.5 years with the college, or the 5.5 years with the college. And all these qualities that he learned in the college time should be utilized for the service of community. So that is the basic aim of government of India. Behind the establishment of this commission, we have National Commission for Homeopathy, we have National Commission for Indian System of Medicine, which is controlling to education of Ayurveda, Yoga, Siddha, Unani, etc. And we have National Medical Commission, which is controlling to the government to the education of allopathic medical science. So all these commissions are being established with a very clear motive that whenever a doctor is passing out from these colleges, he should not only be termed as a doctor only, but before that, he should be termed as a good humanitarian. That is the basic concept behind constituting this commission, and that is the how we are framing our policy. And we will be coordinating with all the relevant agencies. And as I told you earlier also, that we are not working as an autocratic institute. We are seeking opinion from the field, from the experts, from the committees, from the groups who can help us in coming up with a good syllabus, good curriculum, a good line of education for the entire system of homeopathy. Homeopathy, National Commission for Homeopathy comprises three autonomous boards. One is Homeopathy Education Board, second one is Medical Assessment and Rating Board, and third is Board of Ethics and Registration for Homeopathy. All these boards are established with clear perspectives and ideas. Education Board is majorly responsible for framing the curriculum, syllabus, and deciding about the minimum standard of requirement for the establishment of the colleges, while the Medical Assessment Board is majorly concerned for conducting this verification and inspection for the guidelines which are being established by the Homeopathy Education Board, and to provide rating to the colleges. And the Board of Ethics is majorly concerned for the registration and for controlling the ethical practice of homeopathy in India. And the boards will move forward with consultative process through various expert committees constituted for the specific purpose. Like we are in the process of designing syllabus and curriculum right now, and for that we have already constituted some committees under the Education Board also, under the MARB also, under the Board of Ethics also. And these boards have started working with a consultative process, and we are now looking in what kind of changes are required in this change scenario of time, which should be reflected in the homeopathy curriculum and syllabus. That work has already been started with the help of the board itself and with the help of expert committees. And these are the courses which are recognized by the NCS for education in India. One is BHMS, which is a 5.5 year course, including 1 year of compulsory internship. And all these are regular full-time 24 by 7 courses. MD in homeopathy in various subjects. Right now we are providing in 7 subjects. And it is of, again, a 3 year duration, a regular full-time course, 24 by 7. And this is, I just want to give a brief info about the scenario of mathematical institution and practitioners in Pan India. And if we see our latest data, you can see that total number of colleges which are available in India for homeopathic education is 247. Out of these 247 colleges, 236 colleges are functional and 11 are non-functional. And in these 236, recently 3 new colleges have been added. And now currently we have 239 colleges which are functioning. And out of these 239, 191 colleges are there which are imparting only undergraduate education to the students. And there are 2 institutes which are imparting only PG education, and there are 57 students institute which are imparting UG as well as PG education for homeopathy in India. And currently there are 18,592 seats available in all these colleges for undergraduate education, and 1,437 seats available for the postgraduate education. So you can see a huge amount of number are every year qualifying from India as a homeopath. So it can very well be visualized if you compare in the global scenario. You can see that the education level of homeopathy is quite structured in India, and government is having a good patronage about the homeopathy education. And a good number of homeopathy practitioners which are being qualified the institute are produced every year from India, not only undergraduate, but more than around 1,500 students of PG are passing out every year from Indian colleges. And currently, our number of registered practitioners, which are registered in our National Homeopathic Register, also is 3,07,265. This is the number which is total number of homeopaths who are practicing in all over India and different part of countries. And new medical institutions are also coming up, 11, out of which 2 are government medical institute and 3 are already permitted for session 2021-22. So you can see this is the brief info about the education system for homeopathy in India. Now, coming to the most vital part of presentation, irrespective of having such a sound infrastructure in homeopathy, if you compare in the global scenario, other part of countries, other part of continents, you can see that homeopathy is fairly established in our country. But still, even after having such a huge infrastructure, we are facing lots of challenges. A good number of homeopathic colleges, a good number of homeopathic qualified students, qualified practitioner, uh, definitely serving in the various parts of country, but still there are many challenges which we are facing every day. And the biggest challenge that we are currently facing is the reduced number of admission in different colleges. Although we have a good number of colleges, and still many more files are pending for the approval. But with the growing number of colleges, we are also facing the decreasing number of admissions in various colleges, and this is a major concern for us also. One of the major reasons why these admissions are low in homeopathic colleges is lack of awareness among the students regarding Ayush courses, leading to a decreased number of admission. This is the one very important part, and I am happy to inform for this year, Government of India, Ministry of Ayush, and the Commission itself has taken some vital steps to bridge this gap. From this year onwards, we have started some orientation classes, some orientation lectures in the schools of India, in the various schools of India, and especially we have selected students from the 8th standard onwards, 8th, 9th, and 10th, 11th standard of students would be having orientation for the Ayush courses, so that they can come to know that what are the Ayush system, what are the other option of treatment available for the various diseases, what are the other system of education available all over the India. So this is the one major step that has been taken by the Ministry of Ayush for promoting the Ayush activities. Insufficient clinical training in the colleges, which is a very, very serious issue, and Commission is destined to address these issues. Lack of confidence among the student and physician, which is relevant with the insufficient clinical training in colleges, lack of emergency management training, for which we are also providing some major suggestion and changes in our curriculum, a scarcity of faculty orientation program, which is now a mandatory thing, poor grasping of principles of homeopathy, training standards of institutions. These are some of the problem which we are facing, and one of the major issues is job insecurity, because even after having such a huge infrastructure for homeopathic education, at the level of government, these jobs are very less in comparison to the number of doctors we are producing every year. So this is one major aspect which we have to look in. And homeopathy in India has won the faith of people, but still quality in terms of medicine, preparation, education, infrastructure, practice, and research need strategic shift with a focused effort towards public health. And this is where the commission comes into action, and we are in a process of revamping the entire syllabus and curriculum for homeopathic education in India. And right now, whatever syllabus and curriculum we have is not so well structured or not so coherent. So we are in a process of developing, or what are the expected reforms for us. This we are in process of introducing CBDC. CBDC simply means competency based dynamic curriculum. Now this is the mandate of national education policy also. The NEP 2020 clearly say that every institute which is imparting education anywhere in the India should introduce competency based dynamic curriculum, and the objective of teaching should not only be to make a person or a doctor theoretically strong, but equally clinically strong. His skills should be developed to a level where he can confidently handle any kind of case in the clinic, and where when he goes to the society, he can serve to every aspect of society. And we have to produce not only a doctor, but a good human being, a person with good ethics, good morale, good responsibility towards society, good behavior, good attitude, and with required skills which is required to run that practice. So this CBDC is one of the important aspect that we are going to institute in our curriculum, in our syllabus. This is the mandate of NCH Act. But being a homeopathic science and being a science with having some fixed principle, all these CBDC pattern would be in consonance with principles of homeopathy. We never want to deviate anywhere from the principles of homeopathy. Our science is unique, and the concept of individualization make our science different from any other medical science, whether we talk about the allopathic science or we talk about the Ayurvedic science. We have many similarity, but at one point of time, we are distinctly different from any medical science, because the concept of individualization or the concept of dynamization that homeopathy carry is not being reflected in any other science of treatment. So we would certainly never like to divulge ourselves from the principles of homeopathy. Whatever changes that we are willing to do in the syllabus or the curriculum in rationale of CBDC would be in consonance with the principles of homeopathy. There we would certainly make no change at all, no compromise at all. And these are the major components of the national health policy, where the government is giving a very clear idea that a professional should maintain integrity and ethics. There should be equity. There should be affordability also. This is also one of the important part where the National Commission is looking that whatever fee structure is given in the colleges, that will also be reviewed by the commission itself. And the fee that colleges are charging is it really relevant, or whether they are charging high, because the students are eventually stakeholders and we have to safeguard their interest. We have to look for the universality of the syllabus. The kind of education is given in the institute should be uniform in pattern, and they should follow the curriculum which is being decided by the commission. And there should be patient centered and quality of care. There should be accountability of the physician towards the society we are producing. There should be inclusive partnership. There should be pluralism, so that we can multiply our approach, multiply our factors and qualities. And there should be decentralization of power and dynamism and adaptiveness. So these are some of the key factors that we see in the national health policy. And commission itself is quite confident and quite committed to take all these parameters in our curriculum and syllabus. These are some of the features of national education policy, and that we are also envisioning through homeopathy also. The re-envision of homeopathy education, so that the duration, the structure and design of the education program match the role requirement that graduates will play. Integration of other system of medicine, which is also a very important factor. And now government is of the idea that all the systems should have integrated approach. And this we have clearly seen in COVID scenario also, that it was eventually came out that none of the science is complete, but if the science are working together, if they are working in integration, then we can have better results and we can serve our society in a more better way. So every student of homeopathy should definitely have the basic knowledge about allopathy, about ayurveda, about yoga, about naturopathy, about Unani, and vice versa also. All other streams which are imparting education through NCISM or through National Medical Commission for MBBS or for BMS, they would also be having the basic knowledge about homeopathy. And such electives are another process of formation, and very soon these will be diverse to various commissions also. Emphasis will be given on preventive healthcare and community medicine, recognizing, identifying, and fostering the unique capabilities of each student by sensitizing teachers as well as parents to promote each student's holistic development in both academic and non-academic spheres. Emphasis on conceptual understanding and rather than rote learning and learning for examination. This is one major change that we are going to do in the syllabus also, that the understanding should develop not by the rote learning, but it should be more by the clinical exposure, more by the skill development. I would just like to show one example of how the competency looks like. See, this is the one model of human anatomy. Everyone knows about the system of anatomy. If you see the table here, one part of anatomical chapter like demonstrate normal anatomical position, various planes, relation, comparison, laterality, and movement in our body would be divided in various fragments. These are some of the attributes of competency-based dynamic curriculum, where knowledge is not just enough. Knowledge should have a skill also, and there should be every topic, whether we are having a study of any nerve or any particular topic, there should be show how. As simply means show how, that how this is going to function. And there are teaching learning methods. What kind of teaching learning method has to be adopted for a one particular topic? It will be well defined and well decided, and the curriculum will be given to the institute in such a manner that for every individual topic, the teacher is able to know that what kind of teaching method they have to adopt, whether it has to be a lecture, whether it has to be DOAP session simply means demonstration, observation, assessment, and performance at the level of students. So whatever lecture is being delivered to the student, whether it has been observed properly, whether it has been assessed properly, and whether the student is able to perform now. And then accordingly, the assessment would be decided whether it has to be written examination or it has to be viva voce or there is a skill assessment. So all these fragments would be very keenly divided and devised for every individual topic related to medical science. And if there is any interlinking of any type, like this, like if somebody is having the knowledge on describe various types of cartilage with its structure and distribution in body, then this is the one segment linked with the orthopedics. So what can be the vertical linking? What can be the horizontal linking? Like this part classify muscle tissue according to structure and action. Now this is a part of anatomy, but it is equally linked with physiology also. So where is the horizontal linking? Where is the vertical linking? All these sections would be clearly identified, and not only for one particular subject, but whatever the 12 department that we have in homeopathic education would be streamlined according to this competency. And we are in process of identifying some new department also. One very important department, medical education technology, would be added to every college. And then creativity and critical thinking to encourage logical decision making and innovation. Ethics and human and constitutional values like empathy, respect for others, cleanliness, courtesy, democratic spirit of services, respect for public property, scientific temper, liberty, responsibility, everything we are working upon it. And we are in a process of finding out some foundation program that beside taking the education for the syllabus defined for BHMS course, every student of first BHMS, second BHMS, third BHMS, fourth BHMS would have to select some foundation programs other than homeopathic education. So they can have a foundation program for soft skills, they can have foundation program for research methodology, they can have foundation program for Ayurveda. So different kind of foundation program would be designed by the commission, and for every student, it would be mandatory to select at least two foundation program in every year. So the aim of commission is to produce a doctor, which is not just a doctor in itself, but he is a good society person who can help society in various other manners also, like skills as communication skills, cooperation, teamwork, and resilience. So all these are the part of syllabus and curriculum, and very soon the changes would be reflected. So the knowledge would not be limited on the theory only. Of course, theoretical knowledge would be there, practical and clinical skills, publication and submission of a research article, soft skill attributes including communication skills, training in research methodology, medical ethics, and medical legal aspect. All these aspects will be very well covered in the syllabus, and same way it would be presented to the field also. And then another mandate for the commission is to conduct national examination. We would be conducting three major national examination. One is the national eligibility cum entrance test, NEET. In the coming year, commission would be responsible for conducting entrance test for admission in the homeopathy colleges, and this would be the mandate of commission itself. And then another important test is the national exit test, which we call next. Now, next is proposed by the bill. It is a very important test, and it is conceptualized as a single test. It will act as a common final year undergraduate medical examination. So the final year examination of every BHMS college would be conducted by the NCH itself, by some designated agency by the commission. And it would not only be a final year examination for the student, but it would also use for granting medical license. So in whichever college a student has studied, out of these 240 colleges, in whichever college student has studied, whatever level of education he has grasped in those colleges, when he is going in the field for the practice, his skills would be verified and identified and recognized by the commission itself. So this is a very important aspect, and the exit exam would be conducted by the commission itself. And another important exam is the National Teachers Eligibility Test. It is being a very important phenomena also. And whoever MD or postgraduate teacher who has completed his postgraduate degree and willing to take admission or willing to take teaching as a career will have to go through this National Teachers Eligibility Test. And if he is able to qualify this test, only then he will be allowed to apply anywhere or to secure job in any homeopathy college of India. So these are some of the important parameters which are directed towards the maintenance of quality of education in the system of homeopathy, for which commission is committed to, and to frame all these policies, to frame all these regulation, syllabus and curriculum. Certainly we are seeking opinion from the every part of country, from the expert groups, and many people are in fact coming ahead to suggest their opinions also, and commission is rigorously working in framing out these curriculum and syllabus and the minimum standard of requirement for the colleges. And soon we would be coming up with the major changes, with the major revamp in the entire syllabus and the curriculum itself. And definitely the syllabus and curriculum would be more practical, more having the competencies, more skill oriented. It would not be a simple theoretical education. Rather, whatever homeopathy graduate that the college would produce will not only become a good homeopath, but nurture all the qualities which is required to become a good physician, good clinician. These are the basic aims of commission, and for that we are directed to. So thank you very much for the patient listening. The time is already over, and I look forward for all the opinion from the people. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir, for this comprehensive information on NCH. We will have discussion during the panel discussion section at the end. So I would like to invite next speaker, Ms. Dr. Robert Van Heslin from United Kingdom. He will be speaking on improving homeopathy. What can be learned from the neurosciences and cognitive sciences? Welcome you, sir, and over to you for your session.
Thank you very much, and thank you very much for the LMHI to give me the opportunity to speak about a topic which what I would call a little bit out of the box. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the neurosciences and the cognitive sciences, but of course with the aim to refer that back to how and why that is relevant for homeopathy. So I'm just going to share my screen. Can you see my screen?
Yes, sir. Perfect.
Good, good. So the question which I want to briefly address is how we can improve homeopathy, and what can we learn from the sort of the latest developments in the neurosciences and the cognitive sciences. All right. So briefly, I'm going to try and illustrate some of the key neuroscientific principles, sort of some of the latest findings in the neurosciences. And then I will elaborate a little bit on that in terms of what are the implications of that in terms of the most common cognitive biases that can affect, in particular, our decision making. So there will be an emphasis on neurosciences, cognitive sciences, and the implications of these biases on our decision making in general, and then, of course, decision making in homeopathy in particular. And then I will try to give some guidance and hints on how we can deal better with these types of biases and thereby improve homeopathy. So first, we're going to do a little experiment. I want you to have a look at these blobs and see. Just try to make sense of this. See what do you think these blobs are, or just look for 10-20 seconds at these blobs and try to make sense of it. Okay, so a few things could have happened now in your brain. One thing is, does your brain give you a clue about the meaning of these blobs? So there's a possibility and quite a high likelihood that currently, as far as your brain is concerned, these are just random blotches on a screen. It means that if that's the case, in your case now, in your brain, it means that you're experientially blind. This is what neuroscientists call being experientially blind. In other words, they seem random blobs. It's just your brain cannot make any sense of it. So now let's reveal here what's happening with these mystery blobs. I think this is fairly self-explanatory. But as you can see here, this is a bee. This photo reveals a bee on a flower. And as you can see, I think your brain can probably make this connection now that these blobs could be a bee on a flower. So have a look again. And so your brain now is going to have a different experience, ideally. Ideally, initially your brain was just looking to try to make sense of these blobs, desperately really trying to link something in your memory registers and memory banks to these blobs. But for most of you, probably you couldn't see that, this was a bee. But now, all of a sudden, you can actually clearly see that bee. So really, what do you see and what has changed? Now, most of you will agree, and the scientists would probably agree, that the actual visual information that has hit your sort of the visual cortex in your brain, so in other words, the signals that went from the neurons in your retina into your brain hasn't actually changed. It's still the same image objectively, and they're the same information visually went into your visual cortex in the back of your brain. So really, what has changed here, and this is what I want you to reflect on, is the meaning that your brain attributes to these blobs. So now this is one of the very first key and core principles that what the neurosciences are teaching us, is that this is what our brains do all the time, 24 hours a day, maybe not during our sleep, but maybe some neuroscientists would actually say that having our dreams is also part of trying to make meaning of things that happen to you during the day. So maybe this is even applying 24 hours a day, but definitely this applies anytime you're awake. Constantly, your brains are processing all the information that comes in, but constantly we're trying to predict and make meaning out of our environment. So we're going to do a second experiment here. And I'm just going to show you the results of a lottery. And I'm going to ask you the question, is this lottery result random? So this is the result of the lottery. Now, many of you would actually think, well, no, this is not random. But the answer actually is yes, this is random. This actually was the results about a year ago of the South African lottery. And the results of the Powerball was 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. But as you can see, it broke the news in December 2020 because people were up in arms because they said, you know, this is fraud. And so what's going on here with our brain? Whereas obviously it was a lottery and it was a totally random lottery, but it yielded these results. But people didn't really like it. Our brains, the brains of many people, didn't like this because they felt, you know, this couldn't be random. And actually, statistically, mathematically, you would expect this result. As long as you do a lottery often enough, millions of times, you will get this result at some point, purely randomly. So the second thing which I want to elaborate on is our brains on randomness. In other words, our brains, they look for meaning. This was the first principle which I just referred to with the blobs. But now our brains look for meaning, so they're not really good in dealing with randomness. And actually, just a few weeks ago, I read this article in the BBC News about how random is your music player. And they actually found that Spotify engineers, which is the world's largest music streaming service, they had to actually reprogram the random function because initially the random function was purely random. And similar to the South African lottery, customers started complaining and they say, no, this is not random. You have 4 times if you had a playlist, and all of a sudden 6 times when you play it randomly, it's all from the same playlists. So things were happening in people's brains. They just didn't like the randomness. And of course, this is also the basis of Las Vegas and a multi-billion dollar gambling industry, because people will think if you flip a coin 4 times and it's 4 times head, then people will tend on the 5th time to bet that it would be a tails. But this is called the gambler's fallacy, because the 5th time is equally likely that it's going to be head. But our brains simply have difficulties dealing with this. So what's going on? Our brains will quickly and automatically attribute a causality, in other words, a meaning to everything we perceive. But as we have now just learned, we will do this even if there is no meaning. Even if something is purely random, we will tend to attribute meaning to it. So if I put this differently, our brains tend to think what we then call causally rather than statistically. So let me elaborate a little bit more on why this is the case. Another experiment, a third experiment, that's the third experiment we're going to do, and then we're going to talk a bit further about the implications of that. So what do you see actually in this picture? And what do you do? Well, if we think statistically, you might argue, well, there could be a 50% chance that this is a tiger. But based on previous experience, it may just well be the rustling of the grass. Or the alternative, you're going to run. Now, you can imagine that from an evolutionary perspective, our ancestors, that if we do a little experiment and we would have to guess which of our ancestors is more likely to have survived, then I think most of you would agree that those ancestors who decided to run rather than apply statistical thinking would have survived. And so evolution has shaped our brains. And I want to highlight a few principles. The evolution has shaped our brains to generalize and to jump to conclusions very fast. Why? Because if you see that tiger in the grass, or you think you see that tiger in the grass, then there's a benefit to immediately reach the conclusion this could be a tiger, run. Yeah. And obviously, we're also would tend to exaggerate what we are afraid of, because we see something that looks like grass. The stripes of the tiger look a little bit like grass, but obviously we are afraid of tigers. So our brains are hardwired to exaggerate that, because if you exaggerate it, you're more likely to start running straight away. And we also focus on the most immediate and the most available information. But as I already explained, our brain will tend to see causality even if there is none. But in essence, basically, our brain is looking for meaning. So in coming back to this first principle, and a different way of describing this meaning is coherence. In other words, we try to make sense of the world, and we need to, and the moment we think the world makes sense, this gives us, in some cases, the illusion of confidence that we can trust our intuitions. Yeah, and many times this intuition was good because you started running and it was a tiger, and you thought, wow, that was actually a good idea because I'm still alive. Yeah, so trusting your intuition can be a very, very good thing. So when we are thinking fast, our brains think causally. But there is also a but to this, because the attribution of causes and meaning to our experience is skewed by evolution to avoid false negatives. Now, to come back to the example of the tiger, a false negative is that you say, well, it's not a tiger. But if you would have said it's not a tiger, if you would have been correct in that, you would have been dead. Yeah. So evolution wants us to avoid that we say, oh, there's no tiger, where there really is one. Yeah. This is what we call a false negative. But there's a price to pay for that. It increases the false positives. In other words, if statistically, to come back to the example, there was a 50% chance that there was a tiger in the grass, but we decided in all circumstances that it is a tiger, let's run, then the consequence of that would have been that in 50% of the cases, we would have started running whilst in actual fact, there was no tiger in the grass. So in a more difficult way of saying this is it increased the number of false positives. So reducing false negatives leads to increasing false positives. So if we look here again at this image, in this case, it's just the grass. Yeah. So a false positive conclusion is a wrong conclusion that deviates from the truth. So this would have been a biased conclusion. If we see this, we start running, and we would have been drawing a biased conclusion. So we need to be open to the fact that if we follow our intuitions, that our conclusions can be biased. So this is what I've just showed you. Evolution has shaped our brains in a particular way. And these are the things I just explained. But we have to realize we're not on the savannah anymore. Our environment has changed enormously in the last few hundred years. And especially in modern society, our environment has changed enormously. So in complex, safer societies, the above mechanisms have become less relevant. And these same mechanisms can lead to various cognitive biases. So now we come to the second part of my presentations, where I am going to briefly elaborate on some important cognitive biases. Well, in actual fact, there are 188 cognitive biases that have been mapped so far. And this diagram is called the Cognitive Bias Codex. And don't worry, I'm not going to elaborate on all these biases. I'm just going to highlight a few that are most relevant for what I'm trying to say here. But you see here, at the bottom here, there's 4 big clusters. One is about what we remember, One is that we need to act fast. I've already spoken about that. The other one is that there can be too much information and we get overwhelmed with information. What do we do? But you see here again, this big group of cluster of biases here are about not enough meaning. So this word meaning is coming back again here. So I'm going to briefly elaborate a little bit further on that. And but very briefly, this group of biases, so don't worry if you can't read it, refers to this fact that we are drawn to details that confirm our existing beliefs. And of course, the most common way of describing this is confirmation biases. And we will get back to that as well. But the second one is, and again, don't worry if you can't read this, is we fill in characteristics from stereotypes, generalities, and prior histories. And so what is happening here? So I'll elaborate a little bit further on this. And this is described by the terrible acronym YCIATI. And it is what you see is all there is. So you can see the abbreviations here. And the main thing is that this is what our brains does. And if we go back to the blobs, our brain applies what you see is all there is. So, but there's this very, very important second thing that we've also learned just now, is that we also fill in the gaps. And this is why when I give my seminars on how to improve the quality of clinical case reporting, I refer to this. Because I always say a poorly reported case report will only give certain details. Yeah, will give minimum amount of details. And case reports that don't fulfill the guidelines give bits of information, but they don't give the whole information. And the problem here is that our brain will subsequently fill in the gaps. That's why the guideline, the home case care guideline, forces us to fill in all these details so that there is less gaps that our brain will fill. And so, very briefly again, what do you see now? Well, most of you will now see this B. And so what has our brain actually done? Our brain has learned. We started experientially blind at the beginning of the lecture. Now our brain has learned, and these blobs all of a sudden make sense of us because our brains has filled in the gap. Now, so again, this is what our brains do all the time. And a very important implication is that what neuroscientists now have discovered is that we construct our reality. The theory is about that we have a reptilian brain, that we have an emotional brain in our limbic systems, and that we have this higher functioning brain in our neocortex. This has been overthrown. This is actually incorrect. This now has been, by overwhelming experimental data, been replaced by the fact that we construct our reality. Now, this has very important implications for homeopathy. Why? This means that the reality that the patient presents to you in your clinic is reality, because this is the reality that is constructed by the individual patient. So it's in a way, it is a very important confirmation that the phenomenology of classical homeopathy, of individualized homeopathy, is a very important sign, because this reality that the patient expressed, the emotions, the delusions, the symptoms that the patient express is his or her in unique way in which the experience of that patient have shaped the brain and of that patient. So it doesn't really matter that it is an objective reality, it's the patient's reality. And of this information, of this image, only 10% is what your brain is doing with this image now. Only 10% is actually coming from the optical, from your retina. 90% comes from other regions in the brain. In other words, this meaning-making process is the majority of what your brain is doing. And only 10% comes from the visual cortex. So now the most common biases that affect decision-making are the clustering illusion. We've already seen that with a lottery, because we tend to make sense sometimes of random things and we tend to attribute causality to random things. Then there's this confirmation bias, that we tend to see what we want to see, what confirms our pre-existing prejudices. And the third thing, which I want to briefly talk about for a few minutes, is overconfidence. And there's an interesting thing, and it's called the Dunning-Kruger effect. And it's actually, it says with people with a low ability at the task, they will overestimate their own ability. And Trump did that when he said, well, why don't we treat a patient with COVID-19, why don't we try injecting disinfectant into their lungs? Maybe that would help to eradicate the virus. And Bertrand Russell actually summed it up quite nicely by saying the whole problem with the world is that fools and fanatics are so certain of themselves, yet wiser people are so full of doubts. But there's also another type of overconfidence that's common amongst experts. And especially those with a lot of experience are susceptible to this. And this is what they refer to as the 5 stages of expertise. So I'm going to go fairly quick now because we're running a bit out of time. But there's this first stage, which is unconscious incompetence. This is, in other words, Trump. He doesn't even realize how ignorant he is by making a suggestion like he did. But so you move from unconscious incompetence to conscious incompetence. In other words, you're aware then of what you need to learn. Then you start learning your skills. Yeah, but it really takes a lot of deliberation and concentration. And then many of you are in stage 4, especially those of you who have 20 or 30 years experience clinical practice. You can make much quicker decisions. So you have these decisions, they're quick and intuitive. But what you can see here is that the greatest danger of overconfidence is at stages 1 and 4. And this is sometimes referred to as the intelligence trap. And up to a few years ago, people thought this is where it ends. You know, when you have 30 years of experience, you become an expert, and this is the pinnacle of experience. And it's only recently that the cognitive sciences are realizing that this 5th level, which is referred to as reflective competence, is what you call, you know when to question your intuitions and eliminate error. So in other words, you still have your intuitions, but you also know when to question them. So an interesting example came from a chess master, and he said, what differentiates an amateur from a chess master is the way in which he makes decisions. The amateur at the side of an attractive idea will want to show that his intuition is good. Obsessed with his objective, he will overlook some of the opponent's possibilities, quite simply because he wasn't looking for it. This cognitive bias and this confirmation bias champions manage to avoid. If they see an attractive idea, their instinct will be to refute it, not to confirm it. And so this is where I want to come for the last 5 minutes. How can we remedy these biases in homeopathy? Well, most of you are familiar with the anonymous alcoholics. And it says, hello, my name is blah, 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 and I'm an alcoholic. I think we should replace this by my name is anybody and I'm biased. In other words, we are all biased. Yeah. And so there's no shame to admit. So we first need to acknowledge very fundamentally that we're biased and that we need to acknowledge these biases and have a discussion about them. And so, as I already mentioned, we need to challenge our own clinical intuition. We need to try to actively falsify our assumptions. And for instance, in the clinical case registry, we asserted this sentence: when the homeopath evaluates his or her case, at the end of what he thinks is a successful prescription, we've now inserted this question: assume for a moment that the changes observed in your patients are not due to the remedy. Can you think of any other reasons that could explain these changes? So this is similar to what this chess master will do. He has this idea that is an attractive intuition, but he's challenging, he's trying to refute. And this is what is referred to as fostering actively open-minded thinking or critical thinking. And I was encouraged to see that in the previous speaker, he also spoke about fostering critical thinking in education. So the third step is we really need to create a discussion in the homeopathic community about biases. And we need to foster this active, open-minded thinking in teaching and in clinical practice. So we need to also foster the statistical thinking. And here I really want to give credit to Lex Rutten, because he really promoted and he's still promoting the statistical thinking and talking about biases in the homeopathic community. And for many years, he's been doing this for 20 years. And to be fair, for about 15 years, he's been largely ignored. And this really has to change. I'd really like to plead for that. So to conclude, biases associated with decision-making in homeopathy are under-researched. It's important that we are aware of the most common biases and apply actively open-minded thinking in order to reduce biases and improve the success of clinical practice. We need to apply and incorporate statistical thinking in decision-making. And for instance, something like clinical case registries can further facilitate this process. For instance, Yvonne Fock gave a presentation earlier today how you can use these clinical case registries to look at questions like something such as the base rate fallacy. We can become much more interactive about this. And intelligently designed decision support systems, they can provide smart nudges and create an optimal choice architecture. This is a separate topic, but how you present information can also reduce biases. So homeopathic decision-making is complex, and intuitive clinical decision-making is an integral part of the art of homeopathy. So I'm not saying that clinical intuition is not a good thing, but we need to be aware that it can make us jump to the wrong conclusions. And we need to be aware when and where we are at risks. So again, we should consider these clinical intuitions a hypothesis and actively try to refute this hypothesis. And if we can't refute it, then we can become more confident that we have made the right decision. So optimal decision-making requires actively open-minded and statistical thinking. And with that, I would like to thank you. And I would like to acknowledge Daniel Kahneman, and who is the, he looks a bit like Samuel Hahnemann, by the way. So initially I always mixed him up when I was referring to him, but he's really revolutionized the cognitive sciences in terms of making the world aware of these kind of decision-making biases. And Lisa Feldman Barrett, she is a psychologist, a neuroscientist who's really doing incredible work about how we construct our realities and how this can lead to biases, but also about awareness about how important this is for homeopathy. So thank you very much.
Thank you, sir, for this wonderful lecture. We would like to review homeopathy by removing our biases and giving reforms in education, research, and patient care, which is the theme of this topic. Thank you, sir. Now I would like to call the next speaker, Dr. Michael Jewett from Germany. He will be speaking on the topic, is the glass half full or half empty, on the value of observational studies in homeopathy. We welcome you, sir, and over to you for your session.
Yes, good morning, everybody, and good afternoon in India. In Germany, it's morning, and we have some beautiful snow outside here. So it's, I think, very different from your climate in India. Thanks for this great opportunity and this great congress with so many lectures. So this is a huge organization you have done here and a very good job. So I would like to share my screen. So there, you should be able to see that now. Well, you see a glass here on the left side, half full, half empty. And so I will also have some more philosophical implications on research in homeopathy, not as much as Robert in the talk before. But I'm going to talk about observational studies, observational research in homeopathy. And I would like to start with a research perspective. If you have a randomized controlled drug trial to prove the efficacy of a homeopathic drug, the idea behind this is that we have certain symptoms in patients, like disease symptoms, like cough or headache or something. And then we apply a drug, in our case, homeopathic drugs, and then the symptoms are changing, are reversed, or the symptomatology is changing. And so we have a change of what we call a gestalt, a pattern of symptoms from pattern A to pattern B, or gestalt A to gestalt B. In an RCT, after the process of randomly allocating the patients to group 1 and group B, for example, we have the symptoms in patients like headaches. We have the drug and we have the changed symptoms. Ideally, the symptoms have vanished. So then we have a control group, and there we have symptoms A. We have a placebo, for example, as control condition, and then we have symptoms C. So what in fact makes the efficacy of a drug in a randomized trial is the comparison between symptoms B and symptoms C. So if symptoms B, the pattern is more favorable than symptoms C, and this is statistically significant, we have an efficacy. So what the placebo in fact does is it controls for all other effects than drug effects. So if we only change here drug versus placebo, and the whole procedure is the same, so everybody gets an initial homeopathic interview and remedy selection, then the only difference really is between drug and placebo. So this is the basic idea behind drug research and efficacy studies. But the big question is, what is about the efficacy of homeopathic drugs? So for me, the latest and most important meta-analysis is the analysis of Robert Matthey, where he could show that individualized homeopathic drugs are more effective than placebo, with a factor of 1.5 to 2.0, so 1.5 to 2 times more effective. But the problem of homeopathic research is that in most of the studies and trials, there is a very high risk for bias. So this is connects to what Robert says. We have certain biases in research And most of those randomized control trials are small or have some methodological limitations. So there is a high risk of bias. So we can't be sure about this number here. So in fact, what is the consequence? We have inconclusive evidence for most clinical indications because we are missing high quality replications of these randomized control trials. Now it gets very interesting. The specific effect of homeopathic drugs is there, should be there, 1.5 to 2.0. This is not a very high effect, but that's what we can read out of the current research RCTs. But we have some phenomenon which are hard to explain. For example, in homeopathic drug provings, we have some additional factors. So everybody who has done homeopathic drug provings knows that there are drug-specific effects in placebo groups, and many provings reported. So I reviewed a lot of material on homeopathic drug provings, and in most of those drug provings, we have in the placebo groups symptoms which can very well be related to drug-specific effects. Then we have anecdotal case reports. We have homeopathic healings where the similimum was identified but not taken or given to the patient. So we have patients that report, well, I got perfectly well. And if you ask them, they tell you that they didn't take the remedy or you didn't give it to them because it was not yet available. And also in the homeopathic treatment approach, in the whole complex situation, there are a lot of different unspecific effectors, which all can be contributed to the so-called placebo effect, which is talking, empathy, understanding, identifying the remedy, the expectation of the patient and the practitioner, a ritual of treatment. There is hope. There is, in the communication, changing the perspectives of the patients and support, inducing change, regression to the mean, which is a common factor. And also, of course, the natural cause of disease. The disease could become better by itself. And there may also be other concomitant therapies the homeopathic therapist is not aware of. So, is it really the specific effect of the drug which is most important and we should look in research after, or are there other effects? And Peter Fischer, he had an editorial in the Homeopathy Journey 2013, and he said, is it a local effect? So is it the drug, or is it possibly a quantum entanglement effect? So could it be that it's not, the homeopathic effect is not in the drug, but it's in the setting, and there is some kind of quantum entanglement between patient, practitioner, and the drug? Or is it both? So in fact, as long as we don't know how homeopathic drugs act and homeopathy acts, there are also signs that it could be something like part of it is the drug, part of it is some kind of quantum entanglement, and there are other unspecific factors. So the effectiveness of homeopathy can be contributed to several effectors, and the drug is only one of those effectors. So if we see now and enlarge our perspective, we have symptoms before treatment and symptoms after treatment, but in fact, we have here the drug and we have additional factors, which may be very important. And the same factors are also in the placebo group. So if we now compare both treatments, we of course have the drug versus placebo symptoms, but we do in both groups, we do have the this factor X, other factors that may contribute to homeopathic healings. And if we have them in both groups, we cannot differentiate between them. So symptoms B versus symptom C does include this for both groups. So we can have a small effect possibly, but we are not able to demonstrate the whole effect of the whole complex setting. So we have no control conditions for this factor X. I want to jump into some research data and demonstrate why this is relevant. This is the latest meta-analysis on homeopathy in migraine, and it was done by the Central Council of Research in Homeopathy in 2013. And the most important graph or result is shown here. So there were 4 homeopathic studies which were included, and one had a very high effectiveness. Here, this was the Brigo study from Italy, which was amazingly effective. But then we had 3 other studies which tried to replicate these results, and this was not possible. So you can see here, the confidence interval is crossing the 1 line. So these 3 studies were not significant. So when it was corrected for publication bias, the effect was nearly 1, negative, showing a positive trend, but no statistical significant difference in favor of homeopathy. So the evidence for migraine in randomized controlled trials and meta-analysis is not there. So it's not effective if you follow those evidence. But now, going to observational research, I have here a study of my former colleague Claudia Witt and my institute where I'm working in Berlin. And they had an observational study and where they prospectively observed the effects of homeopathic treatment and observed the change of symptoms over a 2-year follow-up period. And you can see, and you have here the effect sizes in migraine after 3 months, 1.48, this is a very high effect. After 12 months, an effect size of Cohen's d 2.0, and then even increases to 24 months to 2.8 from baseline to the follow-ups. So this is a very amazingly high effect, which shows that the patients in the homeopathic treatment becomes much, much better. So this is a great amelioration and very clinically relevant. And also they could show that quality of life is improving. So the very interesting thing now is that in randomized controlled trials, in the meta-analysis, there is a very, very, very small effect, like effect size of 0.21 if you compare it to observational study research, a pre-post comparison. This is a between group comparison, and this is a pre-post comparison of 1.48. So you can see this difference. And what is the reason? Here, you are comparing drug versus placebo, and here you have the whole homeopathic treatment setting. So all factors are included. And this is can also be seen in nearly all observational studies in homeopathy. So my colleague Claudia Witt, she also did this research on a lot of chronic diseases, observational research, and you can see that most patients that visited the homeopathic doctors in Germany and in Switzerland had chronic diseases like recurrent infections, migraine, atopic dermatitis, headaches, sleep disorders. And When all those patients were followed up from baseline to 8 years, it was very clear that the patients improved a lot. This is the numeric rating scale, severity of symptoms. So this goes through all those disease categories and disease conditions. And you can, and 10 is the maximum severity. And you see that the patients start with 6 and then end up somewhere between 2 and 3 and even improve for 8 years. So this data shows that patients that are going to the homeopathic physician and are treated ameliorate over a length of 8 years. And also they could show the quality of life is increasing in also over 2 years and 8 years of period. We have other observational studies. This is the AP3 study from France with a back pain cohort. And you have here an observational period where we had 3 cohorts, 3 groups, conventional medicine, homeopathy, and doctors that mixed conventional medicine and homeopathy. And those patients had back pain. And you can see that within 1 month, the functional score improves a lot from here between 35 to 40 up to between 20 and 30. And this is even becoming better after 3 months and 12 months. And this is the data for chronic back pain, where you can also see improvements. And this is not randomized, so these are 3 independent observational cohorts. And you can see that the amelioration is there for homeopathic patients, complementary patients, and mixed patients. And it's quite impressive. And the most important thing is that compared to conventional medicine, the homeopaths needed 40% less conventional pain medication, which are risky, like non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drugs. So one can say that in this observational research, homeopathy was as good as conventional medicine, but needed only very fewer allopathic pain medication drugs. So this is in fact very convincing to me that homeopathy is useful in the clinical practice. The AP3 group did also research on urinary tract infections, and they could also show that homeopathy was as effective as conventional medicine. But here we have a 60% reduction of antibiotic use, which is in nowadays where we have antibiotic resistance very important. So also here we have similar effects and a huge drug reduction of problematic allopathic drugs. So if we see large pre-post changes in observational research, and we have small or non-existent between group effect sizes in placebo-controlled RCTs, we are speaking about the efficacy effectiveness paradoxon. And this is something which is very well known because in pre-post observational research, we have more effectors and more things which help the patients. And if we watch to those things from the patient perspective, is it helping me? Then we can say, yes, homeopathy is very effectively helping patients. But if we see from the RCT perspective, we can see only small effect sizes for the comparisons between placebo and drugs. So for me, the consequence of this research data is that real-world settings, this is number one, real-world research may be much better suited than experimental settings because we have the real interactions, the real treatment. So if we observe practitioners in their daily work and we monitor the changes in patients, we include all possible effectors. Second, so-called unspecific effects, which we eliminate in the randomized controlled trials, which we may also call placebo effects, they may be very relevant causal factors for treatment success, and also factors such as or mechanisms such as entanglement and quantum effects, which may be there, we eliminate them in randomized controlled trials in the statistics. So they may be very important for homeopathic treatments. So this is a reason to include them in research. And the question is, are there specific, unspecific effects? So the things which are favoring observational research is that it's possible to investigate homeopathy as a whole medical system. So we have including the drug and all other therapeutic factors. So we get a very realistic idea of how useful it is for patients. We compare real-world settings, real-world treatments, and observe them. And we have included all therapeutic components of homeopathic settings, which is, to my understanding, a strength. If we now look to designs for research, we can have observational studies, comparative observational studies, but we can also have pragmatic RCTs, comparative effectiveness research. We can also use registry, retrospective, and we can also include qualitative studies. And I would focus on the observational study design first, like patients with headaches are included as baseline, and they are just observed over time in homeopathic real-world settings, and the changes are described over time. So this is the most simple design we have. It gets more interesting if we compare this with a cohort that is, for example, treated with allopathy. So with a conventional real-world setting, then we end up with a study design comparable to the AP3 cohort, that we have patients with headaches comparing homeopathic real-world settings and conventional real-world settings. This would be the comparable observational study. And then we have something like the gold standard. We could use pragmatic RCTs. So we have patients with headaches and we randomize them before treatment to real-world settings, conventional medicine GP, or real-world settings, homeopathic GPs. And they do whatever they do, those doctors, but we have included the real-world therapy. And this is my favorite model because then we can also compare both groups. But it also has some limitations. So patients have to be willing to be randomized to one of those groups. And this is mostly the most critical part of this process. If we go from the explanatory idea of the drug efficacy to more effectiveness research and pragmatic research, we have a lot of advantages. We can include real patients, broad inclusion criteria. We can maximize the generalizability of the results, and the outcomes are really clinically relevant. Whereas in explanatory, confirmatory research, we have very good data about the drug efficacy, but we are not sure if this is really clinically relevant for the real world. So I come to my conclusion and come back to my glass half full of water. It is full if we watch this glass. For some people with observational research, it seems to be full because we have real world effects. We can include complex interventions. We have broad inclusion criteria for patients. It's very patient-centered and realistic. We can see for homeopathy strong effect sizes. It's drug saving, it's cost serving, and So for the practitioner, the question is, okay, why do we criticize homeopathy? And this is the empty glass for the critics and skeptics. The observational research does not show drug efficacy. So we cannot contribute the effect to the drugs. So it does not help to justify homeopathic drugs. We can have a high risk of bias because we don't know, in fact, what is happening there. And we don't know, we are not controlling what is happening there. And it has a low internal validity because it's somehow also a black box. And observational research is not convincing for most skeptics and also a majority of researchers. So it doesn't help us to justify homeopathy scientifically, but for the practitioners and politicians, it shows that it's very useful. So to do outcome research, so if you are planning to do observational study research, we want to recommend you to follow the highest standards of study quality to minimize bias and to get the best out of your research. And with a group of colleagues, international groups of colleagues, we published just the recommendations for designing, conducting, and reporting observational studies in homeopathy. And this is something like a toolkit for researchers how to do it. And this is free, available, open access in the Homeopathy Journal. So you are invited to read and to study those recommendations and use it for your observational designs and studies. Perspectives, high quality observational data are comparing homeopathy versus conventional care settings for health problems such as infectious diseases. This is very important. So we have a huge problem with antibiotic resistance. If we could do comparable observational, if we have comparable observational data, we could work on infectious diseases. We could work on chronic pain conditions. You have here the opioid crisis. We could work on depression. We have the antidepressant crisis. The allopathic antidepressants are not very effective. We have climacteric problems. Hormonal replacement therapy is a problem because it can induce cancer. Allergies and eczemas, we have the corticosteroid problems. And of course, this is one of my favorite subjects, our geriatric populations, older adults. We have a polypharmacy crisis with a lot of neuroleptics and very dangerous combinations of medicines. And these are all indications where observational data from homeopathy, also comparative observational research, could make very sense and could help policymakers to come to better medicines and to better strategies. Well, I want to thank you with a small picture from snow here in Germany, and well, thank you for your attention.
Thank you, sir, for a wonderful lecture on the research, which is very much required in homeopathy. Now the session is open for the panel discussion. I request our chairs, speakers to join this session. And we have two more guests for these sessions. Dr. P.K. Sudhir, who is Vice Chancellor, Vinayak Mission Research Foundation, Tamil Nadu, India. We welcome you, sir. And we have Dr. Kumar Dhavle, who is former Principal, Dr. M.L. Dhavle Memorial Homeopathic Hospital, Palghar, India. We welcome you, sir. We would like to start with Dr. P.K. Sudhir.
Dr. Anita, just a minute. I just want to comment.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you. We had two presentations from Dr. Robert Hussain and Dr. Michael Tweet. In some way, I just wanted to have some comments from my side. The reason being, we have been there into research since last more than 30 years into CCRH. And the questions which are raised by Dr. Michael Tuit and Robert Hesnan, and we have come to some kind of a closer look into the different kind of studies which we have taken up or published elsewhere. The bias and as well as some specific results in some studies giving only an edge to therapy and not to a particular medicine. Now, homeopathic science, where we usually believe in individualization, and we want to treat a person which is a patient-centric treatment and not a disease-centric treatment. Now, when we talk about the patient-centric treatment, there is a bias in terms of coming up as a knowledge the person is having while he's treating those patients. When we talk of selection of medicine, like whatever he has gained knowledge from his teacher about a particular medicine while learning materia medica, he has a picture of that drug in his mind. And that is what he is looking towards, the patient keeping that picture in his mind. That's what Robert was now talking about. The kind of a bias we have in our mind about a drug also, about a remedy picture also. So that's why we have observed at many places in many multicentric studies that at a particular center, the results are very good. They are quite in favor of homeopathy, the response. But at other center, there is no effect. These are multicentric studies because there are two different persons treating different patients now. So there is a bias at the point of prescription of a medicine, and that brings the change into the results actually. So how to remove that kind of a inter-rater variability, which is there in homeopathic physicians because of this individualization factor. And this is where we have to work upon, and there where the role of education comes in. So this is one aspect which I was just pointing it out, that what Michael Tuit also mentioned, that another thing which we are getting the criticism is about is that more and more observation studies are being published. We have less number of RCTs, and RCTs are not easy to execute in homeopathic side, because we cannot come out with a efficacy of one particular drug in a RCT model. And that is against the principles of homeopathy. The another aspect is, and it is very difficult to have a control arm against a lycopodium patient. Say we have a lycopodium for urolithiasis, we want to find the efficacy of lycopodium. So if we go with a single drug trial of a lycopodium, it means that in other arm, the person requiring a lycopodium has to be under control. Only then we can find whether it is still working or not working. And moreover, again here, the selection of lycopodium depends on the knowledge the physician has about the lycopodium patient. So this is how the variability comes up, and that usually the pragmatic kind of studies are giving more results, because and the RCTs are, we are not coming out with that kind of results in our homeopathic research. However, keeping in view all this, the single center trials have better effects of those medicines than a multicentric studies that we have observed. Although the sample size in multicentric studies increases manifold because of the nature of that study. There's a lot of variability among the patients also. So this is how we have to look into research side while making that kind of a standards here. And we'll be discussing more on education side right now. I just wanted to have a comment on these two aspects. I think now we can invite on that particular side from Dr. P.K. Sudhir, and then Dr. Dhavle, who is here, and our two presidents, Dr. Pinakin and Dr. Nair.
Thank you, sir. So we'll start with Dr. P.K. Sudhir. Sir, you have been directly associated with medical education for about 3 decades. We would like you to share how homeopathic education has changed over the years. What are the major gray areas that need to be addressed immediately? Sir?
Yes, yes. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. See, the first homeopathic undergraduate education, see, Central Council regulation has passed in 1983, and it was continuing for over a long period without much major changes in the curriculum and syllabus. So now the National Commission for Homeopathy has come into force with a certain and specific mandates in terms of policies regarding education, in terms of curriculum framing, in terms of MSR, and in terms of ethical issues related to doctors. So what I personally feel is, I've seen from the Dr. Jain's presentation, we are around 100 and 250 colleges, or minus 11, 239 colleges are going to take admission this year, 21-22, and around 18,000 doctors are joining for BHMS program. And to my understanding, the people after completing their course, their major lacunas are they are not they don't feel a competency in handling general diseases. There is a serious concern on from different, even though the syllabus and the curriculum is framed by the Central Council of Homeopathy early with a standard syllabus and standard training content, the people passing out from different institutions are having different standards. So that was a very serious concern, and some of the doctors who are passing out from some good institutions, they are doing very well, and some of the students who are passing out from the institutions are there is a shift from homeopathy to other branches. That is a serious concern. The problem lies with the training content, and the competency what we have to build up is not standardized on those days. What a homeopathic doctor should have, what should be the training content, and what is the mode of training content, and what is the expected outcome or the course outcome or the program outcome of the BHMS and MD program was not specified, and it was in a vague state. So my suggestion is, now Medical Council of India also come out with the 2019 syllabus onwards, the competency based education. What I understand from the National Commission for Homeopathy, from their release and their presentations, they are also planning for a competency based syllabus, and that may improve our scenario in general.
Thank you, sir. Now next I would like to invite Dr. Tarkeshwar Jain, who is Secretary Homeopathic Education Board, NCH. Sir, you have very comprehensively discussed about the competency-based dynamic curriculum and the challenges and reforms required. And even Dr. P.K. Sudhir has also stressed on how homeopathic brain is going to the other fields. We would like to learn that what you will, by the time we get a policy, clear-cut policy on these issues, we have a time, how we can, what we can advise to our heads of the institutions, students, teachers, and PG scholars, what gap analysis they should do or what initiative they should do so that they can develop themselves in the meantime. Sir, Dr. Tarkeshwar Jain, sir.
The first thing, although this year's admissions are about to start and we are right now, the same syllabus and curriculum is going on in all the colleges, but we have started working, we have started our homework to design the curriculum and syllabus and recommend the changes, which will certainly take some more time to come in the field. But meantime, the basic emphasis that the Commission wants to give is on more and more of clinical exposure. What we actually see in colleges and in OPDs also, that theoretical lectures are taken in the classrooms, but those theoretical part is not exposed to the clinical training. So it is our emphasis to and guidance to all the colleges also, that more and more clinical exposure should be given to the student. Rather, we should start early clinical exposure right from the first year or second year, and the student should be placed in the OPD for various clinical trainings. When I was talking about the competency-based slide where we were talking about the anatomy syllabus, where at one part there was a condition known as muscle and cartilages. So if somebody is trying to learn muscle and cartilages, then they should be placed in the orthopedic OPD also, so that they can have the clinical exposure of that particular part more precisely, more cohesively. So by the time commission comes up with competency-based dynamic curriculum for all these subjects of BHMS and MD, institutes should take a proactive role and enhance more clinical exposure and more bedside training, more practical training, more live training. We teach Mathematica in the classrooms, and I have observed very keenly that most of the teachers are not improving themselves in the same kind of Mathematica teaching is running in all the time, all the years. But unless we make it more practical, more result oriented, more exposed to the bedside training, we will not be able to produce good homeopaths. So this is what the steps institutes can certainly take up without any further delay, and by the time commission comes up with its own designs and curriculums.
Thank you, sir. Now I would like to invite K.R. Janardhanan Nair, sir. Sir, in the last decade, we have seen that there have been multiple rating and assessment accreditation standards have been developed by various agencies like NAAC, NANQUAS, NABH, and even WHO has developed benchmarks for other systems. We would like you to share what is the state of homeopathy in reference to these standards, and how we can make such standards which can be relevant to homeopathy, which is an individualized science. Dr. Nair, sir. Dr. Janardhanan Nair, sir, are you here?
Dr. Nair, please unmute yourself. Yeah.
Okay, I did it. Okay. Sir, regarding this, I have got some suggestions. As a modification of the education system in medical sciences, the government of India has constituted National Medical Commission, NCISM, and NCH with an objective that the education system has to be completely modified. In the past, maybe 10 years back or 20 years back, so many things have been changed, but we are in now very advanced state of medical science compared to so many other countries. We have to develop our standard of education as well as the standards of the colleges also. And this is the highest objective in case of NCH, that we are to revamp the system of education. And NCH holds the responsibilities to revamp the education in the from the entry of the student to the college till he passes the exit examination or he qualifies and started practices. So the stakeholders like students, teachers, and the colleges are our strategy, how we want to improve in these areas. So we are making concrete steps to improve the standard in the education, improve in the standard of the infrastructure, and improve in the quality of examinations. And in all aspects, we are looking into very thoroughly. We are looking into, and the Medical Assessment Board and NCH has started discussion on these aspects, and we are very well sure that within a very short period, our streamlining will be complete, and we have started planning and streamlining process, and we have to improve our standards. I would like to inform to a minimum extent of our UGC norms and IPHS standards. Government of India through its own standards for collegiate education as well as for medical education. All our homeopathic medical colleges, as you know, we have got 239 colleges sanctioned, and about 30 colleges are in queue in the process of sanction. So colleges are coming and students are coming out. Now, as Dr. Jain has told, there is much professional laxity, particularly in the level of therapeutics. So our colleges has to initiate very specifically for therapeutic support to the students, and the timing of the teachers, attendance of the teachers, and so many issues are there in our front. We are working on it, and as I have told, the strategies are going on. And I must tell another thing that about the importance of the holistic systems of medicine is very high compared to other countries of the world. So people are turning to the holistic systems of medicine. Now, India is the country where more than 50% of population are depending on the holistic systems of medicine. Now, we are having very concrete base of education in homeopathy, and we have got a very concrete built-up mechanism, structure and mechanism in education. Likewise, we would like to invite all the other countries to develop holistic systems of medicines, particularly homeopathic education, to make it approved through the government, and such colleges has to come up. And I am very well sure that since India has got such a strong footage in the field of homeopathic education, India can support in that way and can play a lead role for development of homeopathy all over the country. And for that, we have to develop a master plan for 5 years. And such a motive also is very much important. And the people, young people in the field of homeopathy has to be energized through so many randomized and observational studies, and they should be exposed. And I want to tell you one more thing, that CCRH people or the college people are more exposed to some studies, though the colleges are less exposed in clinical research and all those things. But the private practitioners, major content of the homeopathic practitioners are not being given training in that aspects also. So all those things are my points to highlight in this occasion. So thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Now I would like to invite Dr. Kumar Dhavle, sir. Sir, you have a vast experience of working in both urban and grassroots level and with respect to public health. We would like you to share your experience on the so-called urban-rural divide and how we can bridge this gap.
Thank you very much. There is an urban-rural divide, but as we are now able to see that this divide is narrowing in a gradual way, and due to increased urbanization, I think that most of the so-called illnesses that we were seeing predominantly in the urban areas are now also gradually coming into the rural areas. So in effect, what we were able to see 10 or 20 years ago, that gap is reducing. Now when we are looking at educating our students in the competencies to handle the different types of illnesses, it is but natural that we must allocate certain competencies and certain autonomy to areas where certain types of illnesses are predominant. For example, in the northeast or in the Punjab, we have a large drug problem, while in the south we have a very large problem of NCD, diabetes and hypertension. So I think that one of the ways in which we can resolve or address this problem is by allocating that certain autonomy must be given to states in order that say 10% or 15% or 20% of their curriculum, it should be earmarked for the illnesses which predominantly the states deal with in their location, in their jurisdiction, so that we will be able to do justice to healthcare needs of the communities all over the country. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Now I would like to invite Dr. Michael Tweet. He's specialized in integrative medicine and research methodology. Sir, we would like to know how homeopathy can be integrated in public health and in general practice.
Well, in fact, in India, it is integrated. So in your country, as far as I know, and I have traveled in India and visited several colleges and homeopathic approaches. So this is something which is very unique in the world, but also in other countries, it's there. So I see the basic advantage of homeopathy in primary care for children, for adults, in the primary hair care field, and I would think that getting data and doing real-world observational research or comparative effectiveness research in real-world settings with real doctors is most useful for homeopathy. So I would estimate that there we can see the real usefulness. We can also get data there about safety, which is also very important. And to my understanding, homeopathy is very useful in primary health care, but not as standalone, to my understanding, but as in an integrative model. So combining homeopathy with allopathic medicine could be very helpful, because very clearly there are cases where allopathy could be of a higher advantage than homeopathy, but also vice versa. So there are many problems allopathic has, which homeopathy can contribute to. And so I favor an integrative model and would think that training students to perceive from different perspectives of what is disease and health, and to train them in different approaches to treat that would be very helpful. And I'm myself a general physician also, so I'm working half at university doing research, and the other half I'm working as GP, as family physician in a practice. I have the understanding that family physicians and practitioners, they have a high knowledge about what is really useful in which situations, and we are not really tapping into this resources. This is a big resource. And so my focus of research would be doing research with real world settings, family physicians, primary healthcare, and then getting data that investigates and possibly could show how useful they are for public health systems. Homeopathy in hospitals, this is something I'm not really familiar with. You have more experience with that in India, so I think I'm not competent to talk about homeopathy in hospitals. Yes.
Okay, thank you so much, sir. Now I would like to invite Dr. Robert Helslin. Being the director of World Integrated Medicine Forum, you are providing consultancy services to various organizations for development of traditional and complementary medicine systems. Since you have an experience of diversity amongst different nations, we would like to share your experience whether we can make a uniform policy which is applicable to all the nations, and whether we can develop benchmarks which are universally applicable.
Thank you very much. I think there needs to be this movement to develop at least standard benchmark, and I believe also that the WHO is promoting that in other fields such as anthroposophical medicine. I actually understand that they were able to align globally education benchmarks. So I would definitely argue that this is possible, and this should be engaged also within the homeopathic community, the international homeopathic community, to at least to look and try to harmonize on these WHO benchmarks for education.
So we know that we follow the usually benchmarks of the modern system, conventional system of medicine. Are these applicable to homeopathy being the individualized system, or we need to develop our separate benchmarks?
Well, thank you for refining that question. Interestingly, I mean, all the things I told about biases, I could have given this lecture to conventional doctors as well. I mean, we talk about confirmation bias, for instance, in homeopathy. This is as common in an error in conventional diagnosis. For instance, there's this very famous JAMA paper which investigated how many patients die because of diagnostic errors. And there they refer to this thing about premature closure. It means that a doctor who thinks he's an expert in a particular subject will prematurely, a conventional doctor will prematurely think, oh, I think I've got the right diagnosis for this patient. And then he will not explore these alternative hypotheses. He will not try to refute his initial thought. Now, these kinds of biases, what also Dr. Corano just referred to, a homeopath has a particular remedy picture in his head, and then the patient presents with certain symptoms. Then our minds starts jumping to certain conclusions too early, and we don't actively try to refute these initial hypotheses. All these principles are universal. So I would argue that in terms of a large part about, especially when it comes to these reflective competencies, this is exactly the same. This is the top of this pyramid where you move from being an expert to being a master. These reflective competencies, these issues are exactly the same for homeopaths, for conventional doctors. So we can learn a lot. But of course, we also need to tailor these types of biases to our problems, because confirmation bias about whether it's a lycopodium patient wouldn't mean anything to a conventional doctor. So the biases and the kind of scientific framework is universal, but we of course need to tailor the educational programs to our own disciplines.
Thank you, sir. Now, next I would like to invite Dr. Pinakin Trivedi. Sir, we have discussed various issues related to education, patient care, research, and we know all these areas are prone to ethical challenges. We would like you to share what are the common ethical challenges related to these areas and how to overcome these.
Since long, these regulations regarding ethics in even old CCH Act has been practiced. But nowadays, with the consultations, homeopathic consultations can be made by some teleconsultations also. So that is also being a regulation of NCH. So there are many things to be decided among the homeopathic practice. Some practice of some combinations or the malpractices about in homeopathy, or some this integrating practice also may be considered unethical as per the practicing through homeopathic principle. So along with certain homeopathic physician prescribing certain other drugs without his expertise shall not be practiced, and that can also be taken care of while this deciding the new regulation about ethics, as well as there are certain problems with the registration mode in India, particularly with our registration. So that we are going to settle with one nation, one registration. Likewise, and accordingly, the grievances related to ethics can also be dealt with the appellate forum of the NCH, and primarily will be dealt by the state councils and state these boards. So we would like to make some uniformity in between the regulations of registration and ethics in between states and this center. So considering this combination, as the state health is a state subject, so there will be much of the problems, and there is later this uniformity of the act will take some time to establish. But today we have came to form some very fine regulations regarding ethics and this registration also. So we'll be able to find out the solutions in reference to the teleconsultation as well as the practicing homeopaths in this the ethical approach, and by educating our physicians. Nowadays, the one more things, the pharmacognosy is also one of the subject that a physician, homeopathic physician, should know about which homeopathic medicine he is using. So that also area is to be focused in this ethics and this regulations.
Thank you, sir. Now I would like to invite Dr. Anil Khurana, who has vast experience in research and other areas, both at national and international level. Now he is chairman of National Commission for Homeopathy. Sir, since last 2 hours, we have discussed about challenges and changes required in homeopathy, but we would like to learn what opportunities are available for homeopathy. And also, sir, we would like you to give your concluding remarks on experiences shared by all panelists. Sir, over to you.
Thank you. And I thank all speakers and my co-panelists there who have spoken at length about various issues which they have raised and clarified also. Now, the mandate of this NCH, as Dr. Tarkeshwar has already mentioned, that it has grown immensely, not only related to the regulation of education and practice ethics, but also drafting policies for undertaking research also. That is the mandate of now National Commission for Homeopathy. We are working for that also. Different kind of regulations and standardization will come up in terms of the standards of the homeopathic colleges, as well as some benchmarks for education also. We are certainly looking towards the benchmarks for education to have some kind of a, say, consensus worldwide. We are developing that kind of a model where and that will further help us in acknowledging the qualifications the worldwide, whatever they have attained in their respective country. If they follow those benchmarks in education about homeopathy, and we are going to approach WHO in this regard also to accept those benchmarks for homeopathy education. These are available for other Ayush systems in India, like Ayurveda, Siddha, Unani. These benchmarks are there in our WHO, and anybody who wants to actually take up those kind of courses worldwide, they have to follow those benchmarks. So we will have some kind of a debate and consensus to come up for those kind of benchmarks for homeopathic education. That is under that will certainly be going to draft. And as Dr. Kumar Dhavle, Dr. Tarkeshwar, and Dr. P.K. Sudhi, they are now joined. They are in the expert committee group of core committee for that education. As Dr. Dhavle has also mentioned about some kind of a specialization or some kind of a specific 10 or 20% addition of that course curriculum in about regional health issues to be taught in that respective colleges. And for that, we have also now started discussing in our education committee that we have to come up with some kind of electives for certain specific areas, which are highly essentially required for translating our research experiences as well as knowledge gained over a period of time to be given to our fellow students who are coming out from that particular college. If they go through that particular elective and they are now going to serve in a particular area where that elective will help him in getting more standardized practice and documentation. So that those electives we are now looking towards for a focused training or developing skills in that particular area. So this and before this, we are looking towards kind of an orientation towards our faculties. Now, these faculties, although we are talking about the National Teachers Eligibility Test, before they are inducted into colleges, they have to go through that NTET, and they have to qualify that NTET test. So that will certainly improve that kind of a education quality into the education from the very setting was these qualified NTET teachers who will be inducted at college level as a lecturer. Now, talking about the motivational skills of these our teachers, faculties, as well as the students. We have seen that most of the students, when they enter into the homeopathic education side, the first 2 years, they are more engrossed with the topics which are more of allopathic side. Although they are not very well convinced initially, immediately about the homeopathic aspect, once they started gradually experiencing those kind of case studies, and then they start, by the final year, they start acknowledging the homeopathic principles and the practical aspects surrounding that. So for the very first year, if some kind of a motivation or inspiration they should get from their senior faculties when they go bedside and how the patients are getting improved because of homeopathic interventions. That will further help in developing confidence among our system when we are imparting homeopathic education. Now, there is need to bring on that, as Dr. Robert has been talking about with us at many forums, about the critical thinking process as well as some kind of a behavioral change which we need to bring in our students, and we have to improve their learning curve. This learning curve has to improve gradually from the very first year of their induction, and when they come out colleges after, say, they go out, say, out of 7,000 to 8,000 hours of course, when they get out college, pass out from that college, and they then are into practice, they must have that kind of a learning curve available to them, where that brings a lot of confidence when they come out with practice. It's very disheartening to see some of practitioners who are involved into cross practice, and that is not acceptable. That will not help homeopathy to grow even. So we have to come out with that kind of a regulations also, where we should not allow that kind of a cross practice. They should stick to their own principles. However, we are now bringing up that in the course curriculum, the knowledge about the pharmacological effects of allopathic medicines, which is a part of now going to come up as a curriculum. But that doesn't mean that we are allowing them to practice that, but they should have a good knowledge about, because that is available in other Ayush systems, not in homeopathy. So an understanding is required. Now we are talking about the integrative model of treatment. Now, when we are talking about the integrated model, that means we are adding on homeopathic medicines to whatever the medicines, allopathic medicines the patient might be taking. Our physicians should have a basic knowledge about those allopathic medicines also, and what kind of side effects that is likely to bring, and how it is going to affect our physiology and the biochemistry level and the pharmacokinetics, all those things. If those kind of thing knowledge is also imparted to our homeopathic doctors, their students, I think they will be confidently talking to their counterpart when they are sitting together in an allopathic setup where there is a model for integrated approach available, and that we are now experienced in our COVID treatment studies, where our homeopathic researchers, they were sitting side by side to their allopathic counterparts when we started taking up these studies with adjuvant homeopathy. And then they started discussing many things together. That has bring a lot of closeness among these our counterparts. They have also understood homeopathy. Now, this kind of a bridge course about homeopathy is also on the anvil, which is now going to be taken up for an allopathic course also. A few hours of understanding about our Ayush system is going to be inducted there in the course curriculum of MBBS students. And that will bring a lot of understanding about the Ayush systems, including homeopathy, in that aspect. So this is where we are looking towards, and now our focus is now going to be on research side too as well. that commission is not going to look towards that, how to strengthen those R&D college. We have 1,800 postgraduate seats in our homeopathy medical college available throughout the country. But the kind of a quality we expect under PG education, that is lacking in some kind of a understanding. The reason being, not many of them going to the public domain in the form of research articles. And it is because there were some methodological issues, research design was not proper, or they were not confident even to write even a good scientific study. And that's why Dr. Robert at one point of time, at least they brought out how to report case studies in a proper manner so that these are accessible to the scientific journals. They do not reject that on those grounds. Such case studies have started coming up on that model. And now we are looking more and more such research papers from the colleges side that we are expecting after strengthening their R&D department and orientation of students not only towards strong research methodological issues, but also as well as scientific writing. That is essentially required as a part of their curriculum. And for that, a separate faculties we are going to propose for R&D departments. That is over and above the regular faculties which are required for teaching purposes, but separate faculties are also required for that side to address those issues at the institutional level. So with the closing remarks, I just wanted to have that kind of a understanding that what National Commission for Homeopathy is looking towards the education side, and we look kind of a harmony and a kind of a harmonious approach towards the education side at the worldwide level. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir. To conclude, I would like to thank our chairs, speakers, and the guests for their valuable inputs for this session, which is the most important need of the hour, and the reforms are urgently required in homeopathy. We hope that by the time we next meet on the LMHI platform, we are better reformed. So I would also like to thank all the delegates across the world and the backend team and IT support, audiovisual support for the management of this session. Thank you so much and have a good day.
Wonderful. Wonderful talks by all our speakers and
Can
fantastic.
we have a group photograph?
Surely,
Disha,
surely,
can
sir.
we have a group photograph? I would
Yes,
request
very
all
nice.
of them to keep their
Am I
videos
audible?
on. Yes, you are audible.
Perfect. So wonderful talks by all our speakers and very well moderated by Dr. Meeta. Huge thank you to all our chairpersons. So before moving on to the next session, I would request everybody to please switch on their cameras so that we can take a quick group photograph. Great. Thank you so much. We'll be starting with the next session in 11 minutes from now. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Dhanavad, thank you very much.
Thank you. Goodbye.
Bye-bye.